The main character, I forgot her name. What's her name? Ophelia. Duh. It's a... Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about books that I read in 2024. This is going to be a little embarrassing, but I only read 5 books. I was supposed to read 30. I read 5 books during the entire year. That's quite embarrassing, but it's okay. We're making a comeback this year. Everything's going to be okay. Well, I finished 5 books. I read more than that, but I think there's only 2 books that I read this year that I didn't finish that I want to talk about. So in total, we'll be talking about 7 books. Okay, great. I have my iPad here, my brand new pink iPad with all my books in it. I also have my Kindle here. I don't think I need to open this for any reason. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I didn't really read much this year. I love my Kindle. It's in black and white. It's a paperwhite, I think it's called. Yeah, like there's a few books on here that I was supposed to read I didn't read. I think they returned back to my library. But anyways, so I started the year by reading A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown, which is the sequel to A Song of Raves and Ruin. And I actually listened to the audiobook, which I never do for fantasy, but it was the only one that was available in my library, and I just wanted to get it over with. Because I was supposed to read this book when it came out, because I read A Song of Raves and Ruin right before the sequel came out, but I wasn't particularly keen on finishing the series, which I'll get into. But basically, I don't want to spoil the sequel, so I'm going to talk about the first book, A Song of Raves and Ruin. I keep forgetting the name of it. I'm not going to lie to y'all, I don't even know how to sum up this plot. I'm just going to read the synopsis. Okay, here's the book description for A Song of Raves and Ruin, which I gave 3 stars, and I read in 2021, again before the sequel came out. For Malik, the Solstasia festival is a chance to escape his war-stricken home and start a new life with his sisters in the prosperous desert city of Zeran. But when a vengeful spirit abducts Malik's younger sister, Nadia, as payment into the city, Malik strikes a fatal deal. Kill Karina, crown prince of Zeran, for Nadia's freedom. But Karina has deadly aspirations of her own. Her mother, Sultana, has been assassinated. Her court threatens mutiny, and Solstasia looms like a knife over her neck. Grief-stricken, Karina decides to resurrect her mother through ancient magic, requiring the beating heart of a king, and she knows just how to obtain one, by offering her hand in marriage to the victor of the Solstasia competition. When Malik rigs his way into a contest, they are set on a course to destroy each other. But as his attraction flares between them and ancient evil stirs, will they be able to see their task to the death? The first in a fantasy duology inspired by West African folklore in which a grieving crown princess and a desperate refugee find themselves on a collision course to murder each other despite their growing attraction. That was a lot. That gives away a lot about the plot, but the plot does get a little convoluted at some points. Not in a bad way, it's just like, well, that has a negative connotation. It gets a little complicated. I'll start with the things I really like about this duology. One, that it's based on West African folklore, because you don't see a lot of that in mainstream YA fantasy. Actually, I don't think this book became mainstream, as in like on the social media book sphere, but I did hear a lot about it. I liked the creativity when it came to the magic system, which I'm still kind of confused about, I'm not gonna lie, but it's okay. And just the world building in general, I really like that. And I really like how it showed 2 completely different experiences from the characters and their struggles. I really like that. Another thing I really liked about these books, were the depiction of mental health. If you were to read these books, I believe there are trigger warnings. If not, you should look them up. One of them is self-harm. A lot of it has to do with like parental death and grief. Those are major themes, and I think they're handled very well, and they're described and handled with care, and I really like the way it was written into the story. That being said, I wasn't the hugest fan of the first book. I found it very boring until the last third. The last third, I was kind of gagged. I was like, wait a minute, now I gotta read the sequel, even though it took me 3 years to do so. The characters, they're okay. Like I said, I like the way their struggles and trauma were depicted, but I wasn't particularly drawn to liking them. It's in like dual perspectives, so you get both of their perspectives of the story in both books, I think. from reading the reviews, it seems like most people really, really liked it. I don't know why I found it boring. I found the plot boring. I didn't really care that much about the characters. I cared about one character until the end, and then I was like, you know, I don't really care about this character anymore. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was literally reading this book just for one character, and then I was like, actually, I see where their entire character arc is going, and I no longer care. That's just me, though. The second book, I gave 4 stars. I guess I liked it better. I cannot remember much about this book. Like I said, the plots are kind of complicated and the romance felt a little rushed, but you know, that's just me. If you like books that are like loosely based around West African folklore, if you like books that have an enemies to lovers plot that's actually enemies to lovers, as in they're trying to kill each other mutually, and if you like books that realistically depict mental health, this may be for you. Moving on to the next book that I read. Next was a very highly anticipated book for me. I had heard only good things and I was really excited to read it, but it took me a while. I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. This book, I don't be reading memoirs like that, but every time I do, they hit. This book, I gave it 5 stars. I really don't think I have anything bad to say about it. Every time I read a memoir, I have the same thought. I don't know how they remembered all of this enough to put it into like a cohesive story. Because personally, if I tried to write a memoir, it'd probably be like 10 pages and half it would not make sense. That's just me though. I listened to the audiobook, which is done by Jennette McCurdy, which really adds to it. I really like all the care that she put into this memoir. That being said, this memoir is very heavy. It's very heavy. If you don't know much about Jennette McCurdy, she was a child actress on Nickelodeon. This book mostly talks about her very toxic relationship with her mother and how she's glad her mom died, which, you know, is a quite crude title, but it makes sense when you read the book. Again, for this book, there are a lot of trigger warnings. The biggest ones are definitely eating disorder and child abuse. If you want to read this, look into the trigger warnings because it goes it gets a little graphic at some points, and it was difficult for me to continue on at some points. It was just very like, yeah, it was like a real glimpse of what she was going through, and it was just very difficult the whole way through, but it was it's very good. I think anybody could really benefit from reading this book. Doesn't matter if you know who Jennette McCurdy is or not. Again, I would just say read with caution because it's a very heavy book, but it's very good. I don't just give 5 stars to any book. Okay, the next book that I read was Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. This book took me a while to read. I had picked it up in like February, I think, and I finished it in April, and I borrowed it from my library multiple times trying to finish it. I give it 4 stars. I think that's a little generous. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like that's a little generous. I probably actually gave it 3.5 stars, but you can't do 0.5s in Goodreads. This book is basically about, I believe she's a senior in high school, and it's about her basically coming to terms with her sexuality. I forgot exactly what her sexuality is, doesn't matter at all, but she likes girls. And she's basically coming to terms with that in her senior year of high school, and she really likes this one girl in particular, and that girl is a mutual friend, and she becomes friends with this girl, and they become closer, and it's very cute. It's very cute. I don't have much to say about this book, to be honest. Like, I didn't even want to read the blurb because this book is that's basically the whole plot of this book. What else? Oh, her name's Ophelia because her parents really like Shakespeare. I like Shakespeare too, but Ophelia, okay, listen. I don't want to hate on her character, but it's very bold naming your daughter after a woman in a Shakespeare play that is well known for going crazy and killing herself because of a man. But that's not all her character is, but it kind of is. Anyways, again, I don't really have much to say about this book. It was cute. It was a little, I don't want to say, you know, when certain characters, they just have this one thing that they're really into, and it's like every single second to bring it up, they bring it up. The main character, Ophelia, she really likes flowers, and that's her whole thing. That's her whole thing. The only thing I can remember about this book is that she really likes flowers, and she likes this girl. She's trying to get with this girl. If you like Sapphic coming of age stories, if you like books that take place in high school, If you like books that have cool friendships, I would recommend this one. And yeah. Okay, the next book I want to talk about, I did not finish. It's still in my want to read, even though I don't remember how far I got into this book. I want to say 40%, maybe more than that. I attempted to read Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I really wanted to like this book. I really did, but I couldn't bring it in me to care at all. I didn't care about the main character. I didn't care about her friends. Well, I cared about her friends a little bit. They were more interesting than she was. I didn't care about her love interest. I thought the way they met was really stupid. I thought the entire premise was very stupid, and the book being very boring didn't help. I barely got into the romance by the time I was done with this book because I was just so bored and I didn't care at all. That's very harsh, but it's true. I think I listened to the audiobook. I genuinely could not bring myself to care, so I could not finish this book. I don't think I will be finishing this book. This book is basically about a refreshingly timely and relatable debut novel. I don't think that's true. About a young woman whose life plans fall apart when she meets her wife. Oh, that's okay. I literally said I didn't like the premise of the book. That's why I forgot what the premise of the book was. With her newly completed PhD in astronomy in hand, 28-year-old Grace Porter goes on a girls' trip to Vegas to celebrate. She's a straight A, work through the summer certified achiever. She's not the kind of person who goes to Vegas and gets drunkenly married to a woman whose name she doesn't know until she does exactly that. I don't even feel like reading the rest of this. Basically, she went to Vegas to celebrate getting her PhD in astronomy, which is a huge plot point as well because her father hates that she got a PhD in astronomy. Why? I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. But yeah, and her love interest lives in New York, and she's a podcast host or something. She's a radio host. That's all you need to know. Because I heard good things about this book, but I don't know. Maybe somebody will like it. I see a lot of good reviews about it. I also see bad reviews about it that feel the same way I did. Oh, actually, Read with Cindy gave it 3.5 stars. Interesting. Maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I need to be a little bit older to understand, but I don't think that's true. Because what do you mean you went to Vegas and you got married to somebody, and why would you do that? Why would you do that? I cannot see this realistically happening to somebody who is as she says she is. Like within her character, I just don't understand. Maybe I'm just a little bit too critical of things that don't make sense to me logically, but I just found the premise to be very dumb. But yeah, like I said, it's a contemporary romance. It's adult. There's an audiobook, and it deals with mental health, as all of these do. I don't remember any of the mental health aspects, so I can't tell you much about that. But I guess maybe look at trigger warnings for this as well. I don't know. But yes, if you want to read, if you want to read a Sapphic contemporary novel about a doctor in astronomy and a random girl she married in Vegas, that this book is for you. It just wasn't for me. Okay, the next book is another book that I did not finish because I did not care. And it's another adult book. I think we're sensing a theme. This is why I stick to young adult, because I didn't care. I didn't care. The next book I read was The Collective Regrets of Clover. The Collective Regrets of Clover by Mikki Bramer. I feel like I could have finished this book if I had it physically. I listened to the audiobook. I need to stop listening to audiobooks because I usually don't find them as interesting. But there are exceptions. But I think it's easier for me to focus on a book when I'm reading the physical copy, or it on my Kindle. So I might try to read this book again. I just wanted to talk about it because I got quite a bit into it, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna finish it. It wasn't bad at all. I probably give it like 3 stars where I am right now in it. It's basically about this lady. I believe she's like in her late 30s, and she is a death doula in New York City, which is basically somebody that serves to be a companion to somebody in their last moments, like somebody who's dying and you know is gonna die. She basically just gives them company and helps them to come to terms with them passing. And it's called The Collective Regrets of Clover because she basically collects their final confessions or realizations about the world, just things like that, their final words, etc. She collects every person that she works with. She collects these things and basically has like has a few journals of it. I think it wasn't too relevant where I finished off the book. I think I also got like 40% into this. I don't quite remember. That's her job. She's a death doula, but and death has surrounded her whole life. I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but a lot of people close to her died, and now she lives alone. And she has one friend who's her neighbor, who's like 30 years older than her and watched her grow up, basically. But she goes out one day and she ends up running into this guy who ends up becoming her love interest. Yeah, this blurb basically says nothing. That's why I explained it myself. Yeah, the book wasn't bad at all. I did find the main character, Clover, her name is Clover, to be a little annoying sometimes, even though I do love the name Clover. I found her to be a little annoying sometimes because she'd be like, why don't I have friends? And then she actively avoids social interaction at all costs. Like, it's actually insane. You have to read the book to understand what I'm talking about. But when I stopped reading, the romance wasn't very compelling to me. Like, I just felt like it wasn't necessary. Well, actually, let me say this. I am glad the romance wasn't the forefront of the plot. Yes, I'm gonna say that. Because, like, while it wasn't necessary, I see how it can add to the plot. I just wish it happened a little more naturally. Also, there becomes, like, this plot point about a romance with another character, and her, Clover, and her friend meddling with it to try to get them together. I thought that was, I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that. What happened to patient confidentiality? And she says something about that, like she feels bad. But I just thought it was a little strange. Every plot point, while I felt it had a purpose and was valid, I just think the way the author went about getting there was a little strange. And that's what set me off from the book a little bit. But again, it was good. I might finish it one day if I just not an audiobook. Just not. The narrator for the audiobook was really good as well. I think she was very great. I don't know her name, unfortunately. Also, this is mainly at the very beginning, but I do like how they describe death and how they kind of make it, I don't know how to explain it, but I just like how this book handles that, if that makes sense. If you like contemporary adult books, and if you relate to being a loner, and if you like books about death, that's not really what this book's about. If you like books about death, I guess, you should read Collected Regrets of Clover by Mikki Bramer. Okay, next was my favorite book of the year, and it is called Forest of Dreams and Whispers by Katherine Macdonald. I got this book recommendation from Reading with Carrie. Is that her? Is it Reading with Carrie? Books with Carrie? I literally watch her channel all the time. I don't know her channel name. That's embarrassing. But I got this recommendation from her because she basically was saying if you like The Cruel Prince, you would like this. And I love The Cruel Prince. I have it up here somewhere. I have all three books. I know it's a little controversial because some people really don't like that book, but I like that book. But the thing about this book, I have a lot to say about this. This is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but gender swapped. I did not know it was gender swapped going into it, and I really enjoyed that. I feel like gender swaps are very hit and miss, but I actually really like this one. Although the ending didn't make much sense to me, but I'll get to that. I'm gonna read the blurb because I think it's concise and to the point. A mortal raised in the land of fairy, Juliana Ardencourt. I can't even read. A mortal raised in the land of fairy, Juliana Ardencourt, doesn't remember the curse being cast, but the rest of fairy does. On Prince Haythorn's 18th birthday, at the first drop of his blood spilled, the kingdom will be plunged into a century-long slumber, and the unseelie king will reign. As his personal guard, Juliana is sworn to serve the vain, arrogant prince only until the fateful day. But when the curse is unleashed, Juliana alone is the one that can save him. Connected to Hawthorne through their dreams, Juliana soon finds her feelings shifting for the boy she once swore to hate, and soon swears to sacrifice anything to save him. That's interesting. I didn't know the dreams thing was in the... I don't read descriptions of books before I start reading them. That's a fun fact about me. I like going to books as blind as possible, especially fantasy, because a lot of them are more fun that way. But sometimes I end up being like, wow. Well, I mean, I read like usually I knew this book was about fairies and was like kind of similar to The Cruel Prince. I didn't know it would be this similar. That is my main problem. This book would have gotten 5 stars if it was original. This book is like ridiculously similar to The Cruel Prince, like bordering on plagiarism, and I really don't like that because there's so many great things about this book that were just like such good ideas or like unique interpretations to even the dream thing. The dream thing, that's from The Cruel Prince. That's the first time I read that trope in. That being said, this book is like The Cruel Prince, but condensed into one book, which actually works very well. And it's just The Cruel Prince, but better. That's the best way I can. It's The Cruel Prince with an ACOTAR twist. And I'm being so serious when I say that, because I didn't know much about this book other than The Cruel Prince. I was reading this book, I said, why is this like ACOTAR? I don't want to give exact examples, but this book, like, if you like The Cruel Prince and if you like ACOTAR, you will like this. When I say ACOTAR, I'm talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses, by the way, because that book, I love those books. Like, I don't know why. They're not good. Okay, sorry, this is a side tangent. Don't judge me, okay? I think those books are like bad, but in a good way. It's like trash reality TV. Like, it's so good. And one of the books came out of my favorite book in the ACOTAR series came out of my birthday. Is that not divine? Like, hello? Anyways, back to this book. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Even like the main character in this book, her name's Juliana. The main character in The Cruel Prince, her name's Jude. This book takes place in Fairy, so it is The Cruel Prince. This book is an enemies to lovers, barely, by the way. This book is an enemies to lovers between a prince that was cruel to her in her past, very mean to her, and now she works directly under him to protect him. That's literally the plot of the Cruel Prince. That's literally the plot of the only thing with this book is that it's not really an enemies to lovers at all. But I don't think it promotes itself as enemies to lovers. So, but yeah, this book is not enemies to lovers. It's not. What I really, really like about this book is that half of it is in the present and half of it is in the past. And then there's some that's like even further in the past. And I usually, books like that, it kind of hit and miss for me. This book, I think it did it so well, because there's like, for like half of this book, these two characters are not together in the present, but you still gain so much about their connection through the past, and it just adds so much context onto their relationship. Like, it's done so cleverly and everything's placed perfectly to the point where we get a full concise story about the relationship, but nothing is revealed too soon. Like, it doesn't come off as repetitive. I really, really like it. And there'll be like references to things, very brief references to things like in the present, and then like it'll be explained like at some point throughout the book, with things that I wouldn't think they would explain, but they explain it, and it just adds so much to the romance. But yeah, it's too similar to The Cruel Prince. Like, even the thing with the Fae can't lie. I mean, that's a common thing, but like not in YA fantasy. Like, I remember in ACOTAR, Feyre, she gets kidnapped by Tamlin, and she fully thinks the Fae cannot lie. And Tamlin clocks her so fast. He's like, who told you that? Who told you that? Anyways, I don't know. I really liked this book, and it's a standalone. It's difficult to find fantasy that's this good that's a standalone. I really liked it. There is another book in this like saga that takes place in the same world, but it's years later from my understanding, but the characters are featured in it. I see a lot of mixed reviews about this book, probably because of what I keep saying. It's too similar to The Cruel Prince, but everything is done so much better in my opinion. Again, it's a standalone. It's 400 pages, which for a standalone fantasy book with this much content, and it doesn't feel rushed either. I really like the romance. I loved the romance. I loved Hawthorne. Juliana was kind of getting on my nerves by the middle of the book, but Hawthorne really stood out throughout this entire book. He was the best. What I will say also is that the plot twists were a little predictable, especially one in particular that's taken again from The Cruel Prince. It was so obvious. I was like, there's no way they're gonna do this, and they did it. I was very upset. And then the ending didn't make sense, but they did try to explain it. I don't know. I just feel like the ending did not make that much sense to me, but it's okay. They tried. It's okay. It's all right. I appreciate the fact that they tried to explain it. I think that's all I have to say about this book. If I want to say more, I might make it its own video because, like I said, I really like this book. This is one of my favorite fantasy books I've read. I read it on my Kindle. I have so many highlights and notes. This is also very funny. If you like books with mortals in the lands of Fae, if you like slow burn romances, if you like begrudging romances at that, if you like fun banter and fantasy shenanigans, this book is for you. And if you were disappointed by The Cruel Prince, you might like this one better. Okay, now on to the last book I read in 2024. This one I wanted to say was highly anticipated for me, but I got the book like 2 days after I found out about it. No, the next day. Okay, let me give a little backstory. There's this YouTuber I like. Her name is Pages of Hayley, I think. That's something like that. I really like her YouTube channel, but I realized, she hasn't posted in a while. I wonder what's going on with her. So I went to find her Instagram. It's because she's a newly published author. Hello. The last book that I read in 2024 was This Ravenous Fate by Hayley Dennings. I was so excited to read this book. Oh my gosh. I gave this book 3 stars. It's really like 3.5, but I rounded it down to 3. You know what? By that logic, I need to give that other book 3 stars. Anyways, the first book in a decadent fantasy duology set in Jazz Age Harlem, where at night the dance halls come to life and death awaits in the dark. It's 1926, and Reapers, the once human vampires with a terrifying affliction, are on the rise in New York. But the Saint family... I don't feel like reading this, I'm not gonna lie. Basically, it's about... takes place in Harlem in the Jazz Age, 1926. Cool. My family's from Harlem. This was a fun read. Basically, it's about vampires. It's about gay vampires. The main characters are Elise Saint. Yes, her last name is Saint. And Layla. They say her full name so many times throughout this book, and I can't remember. Layla Quinn. It follows Elise Saint and Layla Quinn. Elise is from a family of vampire hunters, basically, who are very rich, very well off. She just, came back to Harlem from France. Like, she's a music artist. She's a pianist. Like, she bougie with it. And then we have Layla Quinn, who's a vampire. They don't call them vampires in this book. They're called Reapers, but they're vampires. She's a Reaper, and she has been a Reaper for a while. These two, right? This story is a best friends to enemies to begrudging allies to lovers. So, yeah, they used to be besties, but something happened, and now they hate each other, and they want to kill each other. They want to kill each other. It's also a mystery. I like this book. I don't like Elise Saint. I don't like. It's difficult for me to care about a romance when I really don't like one of the characters. But I did. Well, no. I cared about their romance till the very end of this book. I'm not going to spoil it, but the end of this book just made me go, now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Layla, I really liked Layla. I think she kept it real. I really liked her. I don't think I could say much about this book without spoiling, but yeah, basically the mystery comes in when there is, I don't even remember. It's basically a murder mystery. There's a double homicide. Well, it's really a triple homicide, to be honest, but they treat it as a double homicide, and Layla Quinn is the one that's put to blame. But she's adamant that she did not kill anybody. As an audience, we're also like, yeah, there's no way she did it, but we're kind of unsure. It's not exactly clear. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's not exactly clear what happened. But Layla is innocent, and nobody believes her. But Elise, her dad knows they used to be close, and it's basically like, okay, work your magic, get her to tell her what we want. And so they end up having this partnership where they're trying to figure out who did it. The mystery in general was a little confusing and all over the place, to be honest, and I've read other reviews that say that same thing, so I know it's not just me. Like I said, the romance, I cared for it at some point, but by the end of the book, I was like, Layla is a real trooper. I'm gonna say that, because everybody does her dirty this entire book. Everybody does Layla dirty this entire book. To be fair, Elise is also done dirty. I don't like her very much, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like there are, I don't understand. Like. And then I'm supposed to feel bad for her? Please. Layla's my girl. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, I like this book, and I will be reading the sequel. Also, my biggest gripe with this book was the lack of, because like I said, it takes place in 1926 in Harlem. It didn't really feel that way. It didn't feel that way at all. I wish the author had done more to build the setting and the atmosphere. That would have really helped me feel like I was, I don't know, into the book more. Like that was something I was really looking forward to going into this book, and then I was just given nothing. So hopefully the second book improves on that, because I'm pretty sure that's like a feeling a lot of people felt when they read this book. And some of the language used, also the way people talk, didn't make sense to me for this time period. So yeah, that was this Ravenous Fate by Hayley Dennings. If you like Sapphic vampires, this book is for you. That's all I can say. That's all the books I read this year. Oh, I should also talk about books I want to read, or should I make that a separate video? No. But yeah, that's all the books I read in 2024. Let me know if you've read any of them, what you think about them. Some of these books I literally barely hear people talk about, so I need to, yeah. I'm like just now getting back into reading more, so I have a lot to catch up on, but hopefully I'm accepted into BookTube, because I see more of these coming. That's all I have today. I'm looking forward to making more. Oh my gosh, this wasn't on the entire time? That's embarrassing. Whatever. Anyways, I'm looking forward to making more videos about books, about shows, even about movies. I'm tempted to make a video about Wicked. I loved Wicked, but I would just be rambling. I'd just be rambling. So yeah, that's all I have today. Thank you for watching. Bye.